Okay, so can you just please tell us your name and what branch you served in?
My name is Cody Ridenhour. I served in the United States Coast Guard for 6 years. I was a maritime enforcement specialist.
Where were you born?
I was born in Lindsay, California. I was raised in Poplar, California. I was raised by a single father. He raised me my entire life until he passed away when I was 18, and then I was on my own from there. I joined the Coast Guard when I was 20 years old. I joined in February, went to boot camp in New Jersey. Boot camp was a blast, made a ton of friends there, tons of memories. Do you have any other questions regarding that?
Who are your siblings, and if you can give us their names and genders?
So I have 3 half-siblings. I have Aaron Ringer, he's from my mother's side, Alexi Ringer from my mother's side, and Tess Ringer also from my mother's side.
What primary or secondary schools did you attend or college?
While in the military or before the military, I had no college experience. I went to college, but the job I had me on a shift work. So basically, I'd get called at any time of the day. I was on call. So there'd be times where I would get off work probably about 10, 11. I'd get a couple hours of sleep. They'd call me again about 2 or 3. I'd go to call, come back home, have to leave to class first thing in the morning. So it was just a rigorous schedule for the age I was at. I wasn't keeping good grades at the time. So I ended up dropping out of school and only working.
Can you tell us why you decided to join into the military?
Well, after my father died when I was 18, I went 2 years kind of just roaming around. I worked in Yosemite National Park. I did a few oddball jobs, and finally I decided that I needed to do something better with my life. And I figured the Coast Guard was the best option because it would allow me opportunity to possibly save people as well as gain good life experience. So I decided to join the Coast Guard rather than the other branches because it focused more on life-saving rather than going to war.
What is your most vivid memory of the time during boot camp?
Well, it's probably during graduation. So there's 3 commanders in the Coast Guard boot camp, or CCs, what they call them, company commanders. The nice one, the one that's not too bad, and then the mean one. The mean one hated me from the beginning, and he kind of focused on me throughout boot camp. And while we're lined up getting ready to graduate, he walks by me, and I see him look at me. I try to ignore it, and he says, "Hey, Ridenhour." Yes, Petty Officer Schaefer, that was his name, Schaefer. He's like, "You know I hated you, right?" "Yes, Petty Officer Schaefer, I knew you hated me." He's like, "No, like I really hated you more than I've hated anybody in my entire life. Did you know that?" "I figured as much, Petty Officer Schaefer." "Well, do you also know that you became my favorite? And I feel like if I met you in the real world, we'd have a beer together and be good friends." "No, I did not know that, Petty Officer Schaefer." So it was just kind of a cool little exchange I had right before leaving for my first unit.
What was the hardest part of the military life, and what did you have to adapt to?
The hardest part is somewhat the structure, and they kind of break down your creativity. I'm a why person. If somebody asks me to do something, I want to know why, not because I'm questioning them, just because I like to understand things and see if there's a better way to do things. That did not go over well in the military. Asking, "Oh, why are we doing this today? What way could we do it better?" Didn't go over well. And also growing up in Poplar, I was basically the only person like me out there, so I grew up fighting a lot. And to have people in your face telling you what to do, how to do it, and yelling at you time to time, it was really hard for me to kind of control that urge to, well, just pop them in the mouth and teach them, who knows best. So that was the hardest aspect, was learning my place in the military and just accept things for how they are and just learn to do them without question.
Did you have any second thoughts after finishing military boot camp?
I didn't have second thoughts about joining the military. I did have second thoughts about joining the Coast Guard. I didn't think it was extreme enough. I actually got out of shape in boot camp rather than when I first went in. And my first few months really wasn't what I wanted. I wanted more of, the hardcore military that you hear about. So I did regret doing that, and actually called a Marine recruiter. I'm like, "Hey, I made a mistake. Is there any way that I could, transfer over to the Marines and go through boot camp again?" And he said, "Yeah, but my company or my unit wasn't allowing it. I had to finish my full 4-year contract." And I'm glad I did. I had a lot of good experiences.
Where are some of the places you served?
So my first unit was in Charleston, South Carolina. I loved it there. It was heaven on earth. At a boot camp, you get to fill out a dream sheet, and I basically filled out everything away from California. I wanted to experience something other than the culture that I grew up around. So I put all of the West Coast, a couple islands, and I ended up getting Charleston. From Charleston, I was on a 378-foot Coast Guard cutter Dallas. We did 6-month patrols, 3 months out, 3 months in, for drug smuggling, anti-piracy, things of that sort. Along our patrols, I got to visit Panama, Colombia, Cuba, Grand Cayman Islands, Florida, Key West, all of those places, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I loved being out at sea. You get to see things that many people go their whole lives without seeing. It was just beautiful sights that you'd be out there on the water and looked so glassy that it just looked surreal. It didn't make sense to me how it could be so beautiful. I got to go zip lining in Panama, snorkeling in Cuba. These are things I would have never had the opportunity to do, and it was absolutely amazing. One time when we're on a patrol, there's a kind of a dumbwaiter they have for the ammo room to bring up the ammo, and I can't remember the caliber of firearm it was and ammo, but it's about waist high, and we hit some waves and they didn't secure the ammo properly, so it tipped over and it got wedged in the ribs of the boat, and it was live ammunition that was actually bent. Could have exploded at any time. We're in the middle of the sea, and I'm walking by and we have all the officers up there, and I'm like, hey, can I see what's going on? And I'm bottom of the totem pole, and the officers, oh, we got this non-rate. That was what we were called, non-rates, and he made it a point to let me know, I'm more superior than you, we got this. I ended up wheezing my way up there, and I looked down, and they're coming up with all these outlandish, way too complicated ideas of getting a bunch of non-rates up there. We'll tie some line to it. Line is rope, so tie some rope to it. We can get everybody to hold it. We can disconnect all the wires from the dumbwaiter, lower it down, all this craziness. And I'm like, why don't you guys just tie a rope around me? I'll climb down there. I'll put a little trailer hitch around it. That should give enough leverage to unstick it from the ribs, and we can just bring it up and throw it overboard. So we ended up going with that idea. They tied the rope to me, and thankfully we did take that precaution, because as I was climbing down, we hit a wave, and I lost my footing, and I started to fall. So luckily they had me on the lifeline. They caught me. I went down, tied the rope around this live ammo, brought it back up, and we ended up just throwing it overboard. So just tons of just awesome experiences I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have otherwise.
How did your combat experience change?
So I never saw combat. We did catch 2 drug smuggling boats. They're called Go Fast. Basically, it's these long 40-foot boats with 4 engines on the back, and they basically just race across the oceans with as much drugs as the boat will hold. So we got 52 million in cocaine and 6 million in marijuana. And it was an awesome experience to be able to do that and make that difference. Combat didn't necessarily change me, just the military culture. When I first got out, I noticed I was kind of always on edge and always expected to somewhat get in trouble, so I was stuttering quite a bit, and it took me a while to learn how to be a person again and not have to worry about repercussions of just being an individual. Being in the military really does take away your individuality, so it took me a long time to kind of recoup from that and learn to communicate with people without a fear of, oh, I hope I don't misspeak, I hope I don't say something wrong that's going to be taken to the extreme. So that was probably one of the biggest ways that just being in the military changed me.
How did you stay in touch with your friends and family?
Well, now with modern day technology, it's easy to text, social media, and everything. So mostly it was just Facebook. I'm not much of a person to talk on the phone or text on my phone too much, so I'll just post things on social media, where I was going, where I was at, the things I was doing, and that'd kind of just be a blanket way my family could keep in touch, just because I don't want to spend hours texting somebody, hours talking on the phone. So social media was probably the best way.
After leaving the military, did you go back to work or go back to school?
I did both. So I started school. It was a little difficult for me to find work at first, and then I got lucky enough to find a position at Porterville College as a student worker. So I pursued my education while working there. I kind of bounced around from educational goal to educational goal, because originally I wanted to be a police officer when I got out, but I suffered a back injury while I was in the military. So it took me a long time to figure out which route I could go that I would actually enjoy. And I finally had to realize that there was no quick way. I had to just tough it out and get through my education to achieve my goals. So I'm about 4 months from having my bachelor's degree. I'm applying for master's programs now, for CSUB, Fresno State, things of that sort. So right now I'm still working, still going to school. I'm utilizing the GI Bill. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without the GI Bill. It's a great asset to anybody that gets out of the military to better their lives and better their situations. Growing up in life, we grew up very poor, me and my father, and to know now that I could have a job that's making quite a bit of money it's unbelievable to me. I never thought I would make it this far in life.
Do you continue to have any friendships after the service? And how long have you had that?
Oh yeah, so basically everybody from my first unit, all my close friends, we stay in contact. We talk, once or twice a month, call each other on the phone, message each other, see how everybody's doing. They are family to me. I miss them greatly. They're probably some of the people I'm closest to in my life, even though they're all scattered throughout the world. One's in Alaska. I have one person in Rome. One of my buddies is in Georgia, another one in Texas. So they're scattered all over, but we're family still.
Do you still keep in contact with some of the friends that continue to be in the Coast Guard?
Not as extreme as the ones from my first unit that are all out. The ones from my first unit still, I'll talk to a couple of them as well. One's Shippy, he's the one from Alaska. We talk quite a bit. He's basically my twin, or little brother, as I'd give him a hard time saying. Me and him are a lot alike in many ways.
What are some life lessons you've learned from your military service?
Just keep a strong, positive, healthy mindset. People are always going to be down around you. There's always going to be negative Nancys and things of that sort, people that are trying to bring you down, whether it be a supervisor or what have you. Just stay happy, and there's no reason not to be. Move forward and constantly move forward. Always have motivation. Too many people nowadays lack motivation and want things to be given to them. It has no worth when it's just given to you. So keep that motivation and just move forward and earn everything for yourself. That's probably the best thing.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
Join the military. I'm not a recruiter, but it was honestly the best thing I could have done. There's times that suck, honestly, lack of a better word, but they really do suck, and you kind of hate life and you're without sleep for a few days. But in the end, you make some really good family friendships. People that are going to be around the rest of your life to talk to and hang around with, and you make some good, what's the word? Good life habits. It gives you good life habits. I was never this determined. I was kind of just a jokester, never took anything serious when I was younger. And the military allowed me to realize my potential and realize my goals. And it's the best thing that could happen to me, regardless of negative aspects of it. Overall, it was a great experience and has made me a better person.
What would you like people to know or remember from your story?
My story was so much short during this whole interview. So just main thing in life, just be positive. No reason to be negative all the time. Always move forward. Keep your goals in mind and surround yourself with good, happy individuals.
Is there any other stories or experiences you would like to share?
So there's one. My last unit was New Orleans. We were on Lake Pontchartrain. We had a call of a person in distress. We had an SOS. So we're heading out there. We could see the storm coming in. It was just a blanket of blackness coming towards us. We had no idea where these people were at. We had some coordinates where they could have been. So we head in that general direction. And finally we see them. So we moor up next to them. And the waves are just wild. They're probably 8-10 feet right then. And we try to moor them up next to us. We're having difficulty because the waves are so bad. So I just leap across probably 5 feet to their boat and have to grab these people because they're all afraid. They're a little inebriated as well. And I basically had to throw them over to the other boat, to our boat. So we get all of them over there to safety. We put the boat into tow behind us. And if we would have got there if we wouldn't have got there when we did, we wouldn't have been able to see them. It was just pitch black. We couldn't see 10 feet in front of us. And as we're pulling their boat behind us, lightning came down and hit their boat, destroyed all the electronics. It was one of the loudest, brightest things I've ever seen in my entire life. So it was overall just a crazy experience to be able to save those people and know that if we weren't there, then they probably wouldn't have made it through the storm.
Was there anything you did that you would use for good luck, or like before going into whatever you wanted to do? Did you use anything for good luck?
No, not really. I'm not one to believe in luck. I know some people believe everything happens for a reason. I think sometimes things just happen. There's nothing we can do about it, so you just have to keep a good demeanor about you. You have to always be on the lookout for what could possibly happen and keep everything in order in your mind of how you're going to do things. I don't think luck plays one way or another in anything.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
I understand that some of us are a little broken, and when we first get out, it takes us a little while to kind of come back to normal, and sometimes we don't come back normal at all. And through our experiences, our mindset changes. We have to have kind of a bad sense of humor. So if you know any veterans, they have probably the crudest, worst sense of humor you've ever heard, but it makes all of us laugh. So kind of just bear with them as they learn how to be normal again. Not long enough?
So all the discipline from the Coast Guard, does he think that helps you just become a better person in life, and help you in certain situations?
Yes and no. I feel that the discipline does definitely help you a lot in life, but there comes a point where it kind of ruins your creativity and your way to look at things from a different perspective as somebody else. And I really think that different perspective helps solve problems. If we all look the same, act the same, think the same, we're going to have the same results. But if somebody else goes in there and be like, well, what if we do it this way? That's how big accomplishments happen, and a new way of doing things are created.
I have a question. So what specifically did you do in the Coast Guard? What was your job?
I was a maritime enforcement specialist. So basically, I was a law enforcement officer on the water. So I'd go through federal law enforcement training facility in Charleston, South Carolina. And then my job after that is to do drug interdiction, search and rescue, things of that sort. But I also had to teach my unit how to shoot properly, our proper self-defense techniques, how to teach them how to use them. I had to teach them the laws that were applicable to us. What else? Train the unit, teach them how to clear buildings. So we had to do a lot of boarding. So we board all these different kinds of vessels for all these different reasons, and we have to train them for the little ones, such as, we just have to go out there and check life jackets, things like that, make sure everybody's safe, to the bigger ones, like, there could be somebody on there that's threatening somebody. We have to go clear the room, apprehend the bad guy. So I had these young kids that were 18, 19, 20 years old who've never experienced any kind of violence, didn't know how to really handle those situations, and I had to teach them how to handle them properly and professionally. So sometimes it was a bit of a challenge. We had some people who it was just not for them, but part of the job at that unit was to do law enforcement. So we kind of had to figure out a way to make them more confident in that job description. And that was my job as the boarding team officer, is to give them that courage, give them that confidence to do the job properly.
What was the easiest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to?
The camaraderie. So I grew up with my father. I didn't have really any women in my life really as a young child to kind of help me get in touch with my more sensitive side. So being around a bunch of dudes who had similar lifestyles, and it was basically like being home. I was raised around my dad and his buddies, the way they joked, the way they laughed, the way they pranked each other. It was just the same lifestyle as the military. You know, I got to be around those like-minded people who understood those jokes, me just messing with them and giving a hard time and them giving it right back.
What was your first assignment after basic training?
My first assignment was the Coast Guard Cutter Dallas, where we patrolled the Caribbean for drug smuggling and anti-piracy. Our boat got decommissioned after a year and a half of being stationed there, and I was trying to become a aviation rescue swimmer technician. My shoulder went bad on me though, and the military doctors really didn't take care of me. So I kept struggling to get in shape, and my shoulder would go out on me. And it got so bad where I couldn't raise it 10 inches off my side, or else it would just fall down and I wouldn't be able to move. I'm 210 pounds right now, and I'm out of shape now for my back injury. Back then I was 169 pounds because I couldn't work out, I couldn't move my arm. It came down to the point where I had to threaten to sue the military doctor to send me to a specialist. Finally, when they did, I had surgery. A year later, I was in my MOS, so my maritime enforcement specialist. I didn't end up going with rescue swimmer because my second unit after the decommission was an air station. And I was talking to the rescue swimmers there, and they're saying with my injury, it'd be pretty unlikely that I'd be able to make it through the training. So I kind of just took that advice, and I went for maritime enforcement specialist instead. It's less rigorous. The pass rate of rescue swimmers like 90% fail rate, so 10% pass the class. So with my shoulder injury, just the psychological aspect, I was worried that it would kind of weigh down on me, and I wouldn't be able to make it through. The second unit at the air station, we did all search and rescue through the helicopters. That one was an interesting unit. I didn't get to do as much, so I didn't really enjoy it. We were kind of stuck behind a radio, talking comms, taking SOS, things like that. So that one wasn't as fun for me. I didn't really get to help as many people until I got to my last unit at New Orleans that we spoke about. New Orleans was amazing. I loved working there. I loved a lot of the people I worked with. There's a few people I didn't really get along with, and I think it's due to the military advancement process. You get these guys that don't know what they're doing but are good at taking tests, advanced into these supervisor positions, and they shouldn't be in those supervisor positions. So I had a few of those that I really didn't get along with just because they didn't know what they were doing. Other than that, though, it was a great unit.
Did you receive any promotions, and if so, could you tell me a little bit about it?
So I've been out for a while. I can't remember the promotions that I got. Yeah, guys, off the top of my head, I can't remember any. I'm sorry. I know for the one, though, that I told you when that ammo got jammed in the ribs of the boat, they're supposed to give me an award for that, but my LT that was there, he was pissed that I made him look stupid, so he made sure that went under the rug, and I never got it.
How long has it been since you left the military?
I left on terminal leave. So terminal leave is basically if you have vacation saved up, you can leave early and basically take your vacation at the end of your service. So I got out in November of 2016.
Were there any instances where your life was put in danger or the lives of other people?
Yeah, on a few of the patrols, the waves would get a little crazy. There's a few times we almost overturned, things like that, but nothing too extreme, nothing like some of these guys in these other branches go through. Marines, Army, all these guys, they're in the heat of it, and they have quite a bit they have to go through. I have buddies from every branch, and one of my buddies is a medic in the Army, or was a medic in the Army rather, and the things he saw and things he had to do, it's tough. I have to be there for him quite a bit.
Being on the water, was the weather like something that you guys would struggle with?
There's days, so something broke in my ear. I forgot what the doctor said it was, but anytime cold wind blows in my ear, I get this stabbing sensation that won't go away until I get out of it, and it still stays there for probably a good 2-3 hours. So that was probably the hardest part, because we had to do a lookout when we were on the big boat, and the wind, waves, the rain, it doesn't matter. We had to be up there on lookout, making sure we're not going to hit anybody, hit anything, or if we see anything that looks suspicious. So we're up there in all sorts of weather, and that's one of the things that was pretty difficult about it when the colder weather. I don't do well in the cold. But in the heat, even though it was the Caribbean, the humidity, I loved every bit of it. I loved being out on the boat. Any work we had to do on the boat or any patrols we had to do, I loved every second of it, being out in that heat.
Based on the stories you've told us, you've mentioned that you've had a couple of injuries. Is there any more injuries that you haven't pointed out?
So I injured my shoulder. That was injured for 2 years with me going to the doctor basically every month saying, hey, I need surgery, I need surgery, I need surgery. Finally, after 2 years, I threatened to sue the military doctor, and he finally sent me to a bone surgeon, and they cut out a bone spur that was about that big in my shoulder, rubbing in all my tendons and ligaments. A year later, I broke my hand, actually. I was back home for a rodeo, and I saw a girl getting assaulted, and so I ran up to break it up, and it turned into a huge ordeal, and there's about 12 people that jumped on me and a few of my buddies that were trying to save this young lady, and I broke my hand in the process. That one healed up, a little crooked on my fingers, that's fine. I have some arthritis from it. And then my back, I was in training, and we were doing our workout, and I was squatting 285 pounds, and the trainer we had that day was spotting me. He spotted me incorrectly and pulled the bar straight back and made me arch my back, and my spine compressed with all that weight, and it knocked a nerve out of place. And the doctor said I have spinal stenosis and the nerve that's out of place. So every once in a while that nerve will get hit and I'll either collapse to the ground, or it's hard for me to move my left leg. Sometimes I can't stand up straight, so I have to use a cane. But things you should live with. I'm sure that injury, or not that injury in particular, but I'm sure I would have been injured in any other job I would have had.
Having those injuries, does the military pay for you and your medical expenses? And if you were, now that you're out of the military, does it still help you?
So it's rather difficult. So you put in disability claims, and they go off of your paperwork and things that, and the doctor notes. The doctors in the military, they lose things all the time. So I had to fight for my back because they said, there's no documentation of it, even though I went to the doctor several times. So I fought for my back. I ended up having to go to Kevin McCarthy, our district supervisor, and he actually put in a letter for me saying, look at this guy's paperwork, because they said it could be up to 3 years whether they tell me it's going to be approved or denied, and then it's going to be, or whether they'll look at it. So luckily he sent that letter in. It got approved for my back, but initially they weren't going to give me any coverage. And like I said, I walk on cane some days when I hit that nerve, and I've totally had to reevaluate my career goals because of it. So the injuries do have a psychological effect on you, but you got to stay positive.